Welcome back. We're discussing and decoding Prime Minister Narendra Modi's speech at the Red Fort this morning, and of course what indications it gives us as far as the economic governance of this government goes. So Mr. Pai, if I could come to you, the point of the Prime Minister trying to communicate better and trying to communicate his economic policy to the average man on the street, he made several references. He talked about how inflation has come down. He spoke about how India Post will now be furthering the cause of financial inclusion, etc. Are the points going through? Do you think he'll succeed, or is he succeeding through this speech in communicating?
See, today there is a very big challenge. The government in the last 2 years has taken a number of great decisions. Many economic policies for the poor and for industry and for growth have been taken. But the impact has not been felt on about 52% of the population, which depends on agriculture. Because there have been 2 consecutive droughts, lack of water, and this has been terrible for people. I think 2 droughts consequently is a pretty bad stuff. After independence has happened only 3 to 4 times. And now when the pain is there, whatever you communicate does not go down well because people are not seeing it in the day-to-day lives and they're asking the question. So I think he wants to repeat this from the ramparts of the Red Fort and all the time, so that when the economy takes off and the monsoon is good, and this is a very good year for the monsoon, and the agriculture sector comes back, the rural sector comes back, people will see the benefit and remember what he has been telling them all along and say to themselves, yes, we are seeing it actually. It's actually true. I think reiterating, putting in their hard disk all the time, so recall is always available, memory is always there back of the mind. Then when the eyes see the impact and you feel the impact on the stomach, you are much better. I think it's a fantastic strategy, because if this year is very good and people see the impact by 2017, then the elections in 2019 will be something that you could fight, and 2018 may be a very good year for the economy. Sure. And if he keeps on reiterating, belief will go up. I think he'll stick through, and there's a fantastic messaging strategy. Sure.
We'll talk more about the policies that will shape the next 2.5 years in just a bit, but let's get the editors in on this as well. AKB, if I could come to you, is his message actually going through to the target audience being the Aam Aadmi?
Well, I think if you look at an Independence Day speech which goes out and it is addressed to the nation of sorts, I would imagine that he is trying to talk not about new policies, and he is trying to tell the nation, tell the people of this country, the common man of the country, that what his policies are actually aimed at. So, I mean, if you analyze many of the points that he made, what is he exactly saying? He's saying that self-rule is not good enough. Self-rule, unless it leads to good rule, is only when self-rule makes a difference. So I think he is really talking to the people, wherein he's explaining. And then if you look at the next at least a few minutes he spends, he's actually explaining how tax refunds are faster now, how passports are being issued in weeks, and how company registrations are taking place faster. Sure. So I think he's talking about how his governance is not just aimed at providing administration, but providing smooth and responsive and sensitive administration. Sure. So I think he is talking to the people, and he is also talking to the farmers by saying that what the government has done is making sure that to withstand the impact of 2 successive droughts, he is now making sure that the pulses, especially on the reference to pulses, where the government has done a lot. The reference to sugarcane, the sugarcane farmers, I think is also very politically very significant, because UP elections are going to be next year, and I think he spent a couple of minutes on the sugarcane farmers, and he took pride, visible pride, in saying that he has cleared all sugarcane areas, not all, but 95.9% areas have been cleared, and he is saying that the current year's areas are also cleared almost 98%. Now, I think he is combining economic policies, combining governance with political packaging.
So, Ms. Shaw, let me ask you about this, ma'am, exactly on that. On the several economic or business sort of takeaways that were there in the speech, his claims, of course, that coal auctions are far more transparent, state governments will benefit a lot more, inflation is coming down, and the big promises, the unfinished agenda, obviously one of the biggest ones being implementation and rollout of GST and the promise of creating a common agricultural market in this country. To what extent do you think these are deliverable promises?
You know, I think I take off from where Mohan made a comment. I think he needs a good rainfall to basically carry out his agricultural, objectives. And, I think what he has laid out, apart from having a good rainfall, I think it's also about the kind of basic systems he has put into place in terms of the market, the common market, doing away with, the middleman, getting the GST rolled out in such a way that it becomes a very effective and impactful unifying tax for the nation. I think he also explained a lot of other aspects of policy making, and he actually talked about how he is leveraging this whole aspect of transparency and online transparency to deliver transformation. And I thought that was also a very important statement he made. So overall, I think what is important for us to understand is that the Prime Minister today is at an inflection point where he wants to make sure that all that he has worked towards is going to be effectively implemented. And I think that's what he's going to focus his efforts on. This government is going to focus its efforts on making sure that by the next election, a lot of the benefits of what he's doing today, whether it is the DBT, whether it is GST, whether it is, agriculture, that people are going to see the benefits of this, and they're going to believe in the economic reforms that this government actually spells out.
Okay, fair enough. Jackie, let me come to you on the bigger promises for the future, because that will really determine where we go in the next year and a half. And I'm talking about GST and this promise of a common market. I mean, a common market in terms of prices when GST rolls out in terms of taxation, and then the agricultural common market, which are the two huge promises of this government. Do you see a speedy or timely rollout over the next 2 years?
No, I do think that there is now a project PERT approach to implementing GST. I think the first state has already passed the GST amendment bill, and I think they hope that in the next 30 days, most BJP states would have completed the process, and maybe in 2 months the laws will get implemented. Then the states have to pass the law. So I think on GST there is a visible timetable to try and push it through by the April 1 deadline. But the real problem really begins after that, because many things have to be sorted out. You have to fix actual GST rates. You have got to do. So I would suspect that there is going to be at least 1 year or 18 months of pain while we adjust to the new cost increases that some products will face after the implementation of GST.
You know, let me
and the agricultural market is concerned.
Jaggi, just hang on 1 second. Actually, let me get an AKB on GST first itself, and then we'll talk about the agricultural market. That was exactly my question, Mr. Bhattacharya. Yes, it's wonderful that we've got this constitutional amendment bill out of the way and states will probably ratify it. That's not the problem. The problem is when you get down to really negotiating the nitty-gritties of this law, the rates of taxation, the goods that are in, that are out, etc. The constant sparring that we've seen from states, and states wanting a much higher rate of tax than the 18 to 20%, which is what the government and the Congress seem to be thinking of.
Well, I broadly agree with Mr. Jagganthan. The path towards the rollout of a GST going forward is going to be as tortuous as it has been before its passage in Parliament. The real challenge would be how to get the GST rates finalized. And then you have to make sure that the GST network, which is the technology backbone that will ensure that the refunds as well as the collection of taxes take place in a manner that indeed the goal of GST of creating one country, one market is achieved. So therefore, I think what we have achieved now by getting the amendment bill, constitutional amendment bill passed by Parliament is just the beginning of a long process. So I think the next 6 or 8 months you have to make sure that the states pass, 50% of the states pass those constitution amendment bill, and second, the GST laws, there are 3 laws to be passed by Parliament now, so that actually the GST Council can become effective and fix the rates. So the next 6 to 8 months before the rollout of GST would be very crucial.
Mr. Pai, what about creation of a common agricultural market? Again, easier said than done, because we're talking about state legislation here. We're talking about APMC, the APMC Act being amended, and obviously the entire middleman/trader lobby that the government will have to deal with. So is it more of a distant pipe dream, or does it look like it can be a reality during the current government's tenure?
I think it can be largely a reality, because if you remove the barriers to the flow of agricultural commodities, you could work. But we have real challenges because the agriculture mafia has captured the entire chain. For example, in onions, in Lasangao, there are 9 people who are wholesalers who belong to a political party. They corner the stock every 3 to 6 months.
Gentlemen, we're completely out of time, so we'll have to wrap up this discussion, but appreciate you joining us on this morning on the occasion of India's 70th Independence Day. We wish a very happy Independence Day to all our viewers.